We've been having unseasonably warm weather past couple of days, like 50 something degrees. At the end of February, that's really good. That's like spring weather when it should still be winter. So I'm going to try to take advantage of that. Today we're going to film. I'm going to film outdoors. So my name's Thomas. Welcome to my channel where I share my thoughts, ideas, and experiences on life. And today's topic is burnout. This looks like a nice spot to set up. Seen a lot of videos about burnout. It's a very popular topic on YouTube because a lot of people talk about why they quit their jobs, and at least part of the reason is usually because they feel burnt out. And that just sort of made me think. It made me think within the context of myself, the times in my life when I've been burnt out, and whether I'm burnt out right now. So let's start with telling a story. At my last job at TikTok, we were out at a team dinner. There was only a handful of us. Our org leader wasn't based in New York, so whenever they came to visit the New York office for business, they would usually arrange like a team dinner, take us all out, do something nice, build up some camaraderie, catch up with people. So we sit down in the restaurant and everyone orders a drink. And one of the people that I know who was at the dinner, and she usually doesn't order any alcoholic drinks, which is fine. I myself drink a lot less. I don't drink as often, and when I do, I definitely don't drink very much. I think now it's perfectly fine if someone doesn't want to drink. You just have to simply tell people like, "Oh, I don't feel like drinking," or, "I don't really drink." And that's fine. But this time, for whatever reason, she felt like she had to, I guess, justify or explain why she didn't want to order a drink. So she talks about how she experiences these different health conditions, how she has like debilitating headaches, how she experiences heart palpitation, how she suffers from anxiety. And the one thing that struck with me, I mean, all of those things are pretty bad, but the one thing she explained that she experiences, and that really stuck with me, was she explained that sometimes she wakes up in the middle of the night and she can't fall back to sleep. In the context of why she doesn't drink, it's because her doctor tells her the solution, or one of the things she can try, is like just live a little healthier of a lifestyle. Eat a cleaner diet, cut out alcohol. Try to get some better sleep. She told this story to explain why she doesn't drink. It's because her doctor said, "Hey, try cutting out alcohol." Now, I think there's a few things that are pretty messed up about this story. The first is that we're all sitting around this table listening to one of our coworkers talk about some really gnarly and terrible medical issues or conditions or whatever you want to call it that she's experiencing. And we just all sort of nod our head and listen to her story, and then we just sort of moved on. Like if you told me someone was experiencing awful headaches, heart palpitations, anxiety, and they literally wake up in the middle of the night and they can't go back to sleep. If you had told me that person ended up falling really ill and collapsing and ended up hospitalized, it honestly wouldn't surprise me. So that was the first thing that struck me, was like we just all sort of nodded and was like, "Oh, okay, good story." And I think the second thing that was really obvious to me that no one talked about, but what was really obvious to me, was that she was experiencing burnout. To me, it was very obvious that they were burnt out, and they were burnt out in a way that was so severe and so serious that their body was telling them, like, "Hey, you need to change something. Like, we can't keep doing this. Whatever your job is, whatever your responsibilities are, whatever it is you have to do for your role, like something has to change. Her body was sending her all these signals or convulsions, really, in the form of debilitating headaches, heart palpitations, anxiety, inability to sleep. I don't think there's any clearer signals that your body can send you to send the signal that, like, hey, something's really wrong. And if you don't change something, then, we can't handle it. We meaning the body and the mind. So thinking on my own life, I think I could only really recall one instance where I felt like I was burned out. This was in my, I guess, mid 20s. And at the time, I was working two jobs. So from 9 to 5, I was working at a PR firm and I did an internship. And it was because I wanted to break into the PR industry. So I took this internship. And it was a pretty chill internship. It wasn't that stressful. There wasn't a ton of work to be done. But I was there 9 to 5. Then when I got off from the internship, I'd usually grab something to eat. And then from 6 to 11, I was working my second job. And I was essentially a project manager for this legal services firm. That was real work, but I got paid for it. And I would work that till 11, I'd go home, it'd be probably like midnight or 1. And basically I would just shower, crash, and then wake up the next morning, 8 o'clock, go to my PR job and start the process all over again. So 9 to 5, PR internship, and then 6 to 11, my project manager job, and then go home, crash, repeat all over again. And that was 5 days a week. And what I remember was I managed to do this for 1 month where I did both jobs. And I just remembered that I felt so physically tired. It was a sense of tiredness that I had never felt before. I had never felt that tired before. It wasn't like you're tired and you just get a good night's sleep and then you wake up the next day and you feel fine. It was a tiredness that felt much deeper and heavier, much more serious. And I just knew I couldn't keep going like that. I just knew that I couldn't keep working these two jobs, basically 9 to midnight. And so I quit the PR internship. And I think that's probably the only time that I can remember being burnt out. So I think the commonality between those two stories is that in both instances, in my coworker's case and in my case, the burnout manifested physically. My theory is that burnout is caused by mental, emotional, and spiritual strain. But what ends up happening is that all of that duress that we accumulate mentally and emotionally and spiritually, all of that ends up in our bodies. All of that ends up accumulated in our nervous system, in our muscular system. If you're wondering if you are burnt out, listen to your body. Listen to what your body is saying to you, because your body is where all the damage accrues and ends up. I think that a lot of people, myself included, are really good at rationalizing, compartmentalizing, and mentally getting past challenging conditions. But the body keeps track and the body doesn't lie. Or the final thing I want to talk about is I asked myself, am I burnt out now? And I started thinking about this a week ago. And at first I thought, I'm not burnt out, because mentally I do feel ready to go back to work, partly because I am someone who likes to work, likes to grind. But I think the reason why I might be burnt out is because I made a video maybe a month ago now where I talked about the need for a schedule and a routine. And that was partly because I noticed that if given the opportunity, I just want to sleep in. And for basically an entire week after that video, I did an experiment where I didn't set an alarm and I just let my body sleep in until whatever hour it felt like sleeping into. And I kept sleeping in until 11:30. And at first I found that frustrating because waking up late just means there's less hours for you to go out and do stuff, especially in January when the days are so short and you really don't get that much daylight. And eventually I came around to it, well, what's wrong with sleeping in? Like, I'm supposed to be on sabbatical. Like, if now's not the time for me to sleep in late and ignore the alarm, then when am I ever going to get to do that? But in the context of thinking about burnout, what I came to realize, or what I've come to accept, is that maybe I am burnt out. Because if my body wants to sleep in till 11:30 every day and it wants to sleep for 9 hours at a time, then maybe my body is sending the signal or trying to send a signal to me that, like, hey, I'm burnt out. I need some time to recover. So even though I feel fine mentally and emotionally and feel like I could go back to work, my body is sending me the signal that it's accumulated quite a bit of stress and it probably needs some time to recover from that. So I think that's the theme of this video, or to recap and summarize, burnout is something that is retained and felt physically. And the cause of it, the catalyst of it, is mental and emotional stress. And I used to think that I had really great strategies for dealing with burnout. Mentally or philosophically, I always kept in mind that work or your job is just that. It doesn't go any deeper than that. It's not your life, it's not who you are. And I always kept that philosophy or mentality in mind because I knew that at any given point, you could be laid off. You could be fired, you could be laid off when you're no longer useful. It's happened to me enough times where that's my mentality going into anything. I tell myself, it's just a job, it's what you do for money. It might be exciting, it might be even fulfilling on some level, might pay you really well, might be with a company that a lot of people are impressed by. But at the end of the day, it's just your job, and to keep that separation. But in terms of how I actually go about that, I draw very clear lines between work and my personal life. So as much as possible, I don't work from home because I think that blurs the lines between a part of my life that is private and personal, which is my home, and obviously the part of life that is not as serious, that I'm trying to keep separate, which is work. Beyond that, I am very careful to cut off not just performing work, but thinking about work after hours. So I won't check my phone or emails. I won't check in on the weekends. I basically set it up so that when I am working, I put a lot of energy into it and trying to do my best. But once it's over, I just close everything up. Don't do any more work. Don't think about it. It was another way to try to separate out my work life and my personal life. And I thought I was being smart, and I had such a great strategy and mindset for preventing burnout. If I do these things, like, hey, if you keep in mind your job is just your job, it's not that serious. And if you're really good at separating your job from your personal life and making sure that you don't give any more time or energy necessary to your job, then in theory, you should be great. You won't be burnt out. And clearly that's not the case because I think I am burnt out. My body is telling me that it's tired and it wants a lot of sleep, and you can't ignore that. So all these strategies I had, this mindset I had that I thought would serve me really well, didn't work. So maybe that's the conclusion I've reached, is that burnout is inevitable. Burnout is simply a fact of life. Maybe it's just that human beings weren't meant to work that many hours and think that long and that hard about something. Maybe we're just not meant to work like that and not accumulate some sort of stress or damage on our bodies. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a sad conclusion to think about, that burnout is inevitable. But if you do think you might be burned out, listen to your body. Listen to what your body is telling you, and you'll probably have the answer. So that's it. That's all I got for you today. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else too.